I am Atlas the Fox, and this is the story of how one king convinced the world he was saving Africa, while turning it into his personal empire. In the winter of 1884, diplomats from Europe's great powers gathered in Berlin. Africa stretched before them, on maps spread across conference tables. The gathering became known as the Berlin Conference. Its purpose was simple: to divide Africa among European powers and avoid war between rival empires. The meeting formalized the Scramble for Africa. It allowed European powers to divide the continent among themselves. Representatives from 14 European nations and the United States attended. No African leaders were invited. No African representatives were consulted. Africa was being divided, without a single African in the room. But among the delegates sat Leopold II, King of Belgium. He spoke of science, of Christianity, of ending the slave trade, of roads, schools, and progress. Many believed him. The United States became the first country to recognize his claim. European governments followed. When the conference ended, Leopold had achieved something extraordinary. The Congo Free State was his, not a Belgian colony, his personal property. An area larger than Western Europe, 80 times the size of Belgium, the largest private possession on Earth. Across Europe, his project was praised as a mission of progress, a triumph of civilization, a humanitarian dream. It was none of these things. Within a generation, the Congo would become a place of forced labor, mutilation, and mass death, and the world would not know for years. Long before Leopold's ambitions, the Congo was home to thriving societies. Among them was the Kingdom of Congo, a powerful state that emerged centuries before most Europeans had even heard of it. When Portuguese sailors reached the mouth of the Congo River in the late 15th century, relations were initially peaceful. Trade developed, missionaries arrived, and some rulers embraced Christianity. But over the centuries, the Atlantic slave trade transformed the region. European merchants, African rulers, and slave traders built a vast system that carried millions of people across the ocean. Communities were destroyed, kingdoms weakened. Yet one thing remained unchanged. The interior of the Congo remained largely unknown to Europeans. Dense rainforest, powerful rivers, and vast distances kept outsiders away. Maps showed enormous blank spaces. Then came Henry Morton Stanley, a Welsh-American explorer and journalist, already famous for his African journeys. Stanley was exactly the man Leopold needed. In 1878, Leopold hired Stanley to survey the Congo River Basin. What Stanley found changed everything. The Congo River provided access deep into the heart of the continent. To Leopold, it represented one thing: opportunity. Over several years, Stanley moved through the Congo, signing agreements with local chiefs, quietly building the foundation for one of the greatest land seizures in history. Officially, he worked for the International Association of the Congo. It sounded scientific. It sounded humanitarian. It sounded international. In reality, Leopold controlled it entirely. The Berlin Conference accepted Leopold's arguments. German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck and King Leopold shook hands. The scramble for Africa was over. The International Association became the Congo Free State, and Leopold intended to make it pay. At first, the Congo produced ivory. The world's growing industries and wealthy households demanded it in enormous quantities. Piano keys, jewelry, billiard balls, luxury goods, all relied on ivory. Thousands of elephant tusks were taken from the Congo each year and shipped to Europe. The profits were substantial. But another commodity would transform everything: rubber. In the late 19th century, the world entered a technological revolution. Bicycles, automobiles, industrial machinery, all demanded rubber. And almost overnight, demand exploded. The forests of the Congo contained vast quantities of wild rubber vines. Leopold saw immense profits waiting to be extracted, so he built a system to take them. At its center stood the Force Publique, a colonial army created to enforce Leopold's authority across the entire territory. Villages received quotas. Each community was ordered to collect a fixed amount of rubber. Failure was not permitted. Men were forced into the forests. Women and children were held hostage until the quotas were met. What followed was systematic terror. Villages were burned. People were whipped and left permanently scarred. Executions were carried out, and to prove that bullets had not been wasted, soldiers were ordered to return with evidence: the severed hands of the dead. The cut hand became the symbol of Leopold's rule. Fear became the engine of the system. Fields went untended. Families were separated. Disease spread through communities already broken by violence. Birth rates fell. Meanwhile, rubber flowed down the Congo River and onto ships bound for Europe. Leopold grew rich. Grand buildings and monuments rose across Belgium, and the wealth came entirely from forced labor and mass suffering. For years, the system remained hidden behind distance, censorship, and fear. Then the truth began to escape. In 1890, George Washington Williams, an African-American minister and writer, traveled through the Congo. What he saw deeply disturbed him. He wrote an open letter directly to Leopold. He accused the king's agents of brutal and inhuman treatment, and he described what was happening as crimes against humanity. Leopold dismissed the accusations. Williams died on his way home. The silence had been broken. Protestant missionaries began to speak of atrocities committed by Leopold's agents and the Force Publique. Then, in 1902, Joseph Conrad, a Polish-British novelist, published Heart of Darkness. Drawing on his own journey through the Congo as a steamboat captain, Conrad described a world consumed by greed, violence, moral collapse, and the thin line between civilization and barbarity. But literature was not enough. The world needed evidence. In 1903, British diplomat Roger Casement traveled through the Congo. He listened, and what he discovered shocked him. The Casement Report of 1904 gave the world its first official evidence. Leopold's humanitarian mission was built on forced labor, starvation, mutilation, and terror. Yet exposing the crimes was only half the battle. Someone still needed to make the world care. That person was Edmund Dean Morel. Not a politician, not a soldier, a shipping clerk. Morel had noticed something others had missed. Ships arriving from the Congo carried ivory and rubber worth millions. Ships returning to Africa carried almost nothing, except rifles, ammunition, and chains. If the Congolese were being paid fairly, goods would have flowed both ways. They were not. Morel later wrote, "I had stumbled upon a secret society of murderers with a king for a partner." He dedicated his life to what came next. Through newspapers, speeches, books, and public meetings, Morel transformed a distant African tragedy into an international scandal. Together, Casement and Morel built one of the world's first major human rights campaigns. The Congo Reform Association attracted supporters across Europe and the United States. Leopold's carefully constructed image began to crack. The king who had promised civilization now stood accused before the world. He could no longer control the story. In 1908, under mounting international pressure, the Belgian parliament annexed the Congo. Leopold's private empire was gone. But this was not justice. Leopold was compensated. Belgium paid millions to absorb the territory, settle its debts, and fund his personal projects. The Congolese were never consulted, never compensated. Not then, not ever. Once again, decisions that would shape millions of lives were made in distant rooms by people who had never seen the land they were deciding. In 22 years, around 10 million Congolese died under Leopold's rule, nearly half the population at that time. Some were murdered. Many more died from forced labor, starvation, and disease. Leopold II died in 1909, in his palace, in his own bed, at the age of 74. Today, he remains one of the most controversial figures in European history. Some of his monuments have been removed. Others still stand in Brussels, the capital of Belgium. In 2020, Prince Laurent of Belgium, a member of the Belgian royal family and a relative of Leopold II, defended his ancestor. He argued that Leopold could not be held personally responsible because he never visited the Congo. And in the mind of Prince Laurent, that was a defense. Perhaps from inside a palace in Brussels, it made perfect sense. For the descendants of 10 million dead, it was something else entirely. But one fact stands above the debate. A king promised civilization. He promised progress. He promised a better future. Instead, he turned an entire country into his private property, and millions paid the price with their lives. Hi, I am Atlas the Fox. If you want more stories from history, subscribe and follow me into the next episode.